Welcome to Blessed Be the Breakdown, the podcast where I unpack The Handmaid's Tale and uncover the real-world parallels that make it all the more terrifying. Today, we're digging into Season 6, Episode 6. And as always, this episode is full of spoilers, so if you haven't watched yet, I'd recommend going to watch and then coming right back. Alright, let's get into it. Season 6, Episode 6, Surprise. The episode picks up right where we left off, with June and Moira crammed into Lawrence's trunk, talking about the letters and the map they had to leave behind at Jezebel's. When the car finally stops, it's clear they are not at the border like they hoped. Lawrence orders them out of the car, and from there, things escalate quickly. June asks where they are, and Lawrence, in his usual cold, sarcastic way, tells them he ought to just leave them there and see how far they get. June, never one to back down, fires right back, telling him to do whatever he needs to do. Lawrence demands to know why they're really there, but June refuses to give him anything, saying she's not about to tell him just so he can go running to his little friends. From there, we get another one of those tense emotional standoffs, a lot of finger pointing and a lot of old wounds being reopened. Lawrence insists he wasn't responsible for the planes being shot down when they tried to save Hannah. June, understandably bitter, throws it right back at him, saying he could have stopped it if he wanted to. And then Lawrence hits her where it hurts too. He reminds her that she could have stopped Eleanor's death, a moment that clearly still weighs on him, rightfully so. It's another reminder of how broken and complicated all of these relationships have become, and how much guilt both of them are carrying. The silence that follows their argument says everything. June once again realizes that she's not the only one carrying pain. As much as Lawrence can be an ass and is literally the architect of Gilead, we've seen before that June does care about him in some way. She tells him she doesn't expect him to forgive her, but we also see that Lawrence probably doesn't expect to forgive himself either. He openly admits it, saying, "I can't forgive myself," specifically for trapping his wife Eleanor in the brutal world he helped create. Still visibly shaken by what he overheard, Lawrence tells June that the commanders want to put him on the wall. He even makes a reference to maybe they'll be on the wall right next to each other, which is kind of funny but also not funny. June sees this as an opportunity to use Lawrence in their plan. He clearly needs to regain some power to survive, and if they can bring him into Mayday's plan, not only would they have a high commander on their side, but Lawrence could also cleanse some of Gilead's leadership without getting his own hands too dirty. They end up back at Lawrence's house planning their next move, but Naomi comes downstairs, nagging Lawrence about why he's out so late. It's here that June finds out what happened to Commander Putnam, and that Lawrence has now remarried to Naomi. At this point, Lawrence agrees to help, because realistically, it's either help Mayday or end up on the wall. When it's time to get June and Moira back to the border, Lawrence says he can take them, but they need to move fast, because his contact is only on shift for a short amount of time. When June mentions they need to stop at Jezebel's to retrieve what they had left behind, Lawrence shuts it down, saying there's no way he can help, because he doesn't have any way or know anybody on the inside. That's when June calls Nick for backup. Right before Nick gets the call, we flash back to the hospital, where we see the aftermath of Nick taking the guard's life and the guard coding. When Nick answers June's call, you can immediately tell something is off. Given the flashback, it's safe to assume that he's feeling the weight of what he's just done, and that guilt is clearly starting to show. On the call, Nick and June quickly make a plan. Lawrence will take Moira back to the border, and Nick will help June retrieve the letters and map from Jezebel's. It's clear that Nick needs somebody to lean on, and June is that person for him. The one person who can give him the comfort and understanding that he desperately needs. Next, we see Nick at Jezebel's in Janine's room retrieving the letters and the map. But in a strange moment, he picks up the guard's tooth, and I'm not sure the relevance, but it definitely stands out. Maybe it was just him picking it up, I don't know. Maybe there's something more to it, maybe there's not, but I just thought that was kind of weird. As he's leaving the room, Commander Bell shows up, walking down the hall with Janine in tow. Of course, he spots Nick and instantly starts with the sarcasm, saying he's surprised to see the Boy Scout himself here, questioning if Wharton gave him permission. I really can't stand Bell. He's like a combination of all the bad in Gilead, and especially just all the bad commanders. He's just like the worst of them all, and the worst we've seen. Janine, quick on her feet, helps cover for Nick, playing along with the assumption that he's been visiting Jezebel's. We see Belle's jealousy come out once again here when he thinks Nick has been with Janine. But Janine quickly shuts that down, using this as an opportunity to slyly ask about June and Moira, wanting to know if they made it out okay. Nick reassures her that they made it out okay, maintaining a calm front in front of Belle. Nick finally reunites with June at Lawrence's place, and she immediately senses something is off, and asks him if he's okay. He replies with a simple yeah, and suggests that it's safer to leave in the morning. But he also mentions that Rose and Wharton are heading to DC, which means they'll have the house to themselves. June agrees, but she presses him, asking again what's wrong. In response, he pulls her into a hug. He proceeds to say, "Sometimes I think you're the only good thing in my life." And that moment hit hard. You can feel how much Nick is struggling, how much he's torn between playing both sides and keeping his own humanity intact. It's truly heartbreaking seeing Nick, a man who's been caught up in the horrors of Gilead, still clinging to the small bit of light he finds in June. Throughout the show, we've seen that Nick doesn't see himself as anyone special, but time and time again, he's done what he can for the people he cares about, especially June, even when it costs him. In this moment, despite all his internal conflict and the weight of his actions, he's still human, fragile, and desperately trying to hold on to whatever pieces of himself he can. It's a small but powerful reminder that even in the darkest places, moments of connection can still offer some kind of hope, even for someone as lost as Nick. In this episode, we get flashbacks to when Nick and June first got together at the Waterfords. We see them fantasizing about what could have been if Gilead never happened, imagining a normal world where they could just be together doing normal things like getting coffee and going to Paris. It's during this conversation that we really get a raw look into Nick's mindset. We see him admit that he never really saw himself as anyone before Gilead. He even says he didn't have much of a life, that he wasn't anyone important, even pointing out that June probably wouldn't have noticed him back then. And of course, June responds in the way we would hope she would, telling him that yes, she would have, because he would still be him. Now, we've gotten small pieces of how Nick thinks before, little glimpses into his mind, but in this episode, we're really starting to understand why he is where he is. This moment shows us that Nick's sense of self-worth has always been fragile. Gilead, for all its horrors, gave him something he didn't have before. A role, an identity, a place where he mattered. And when someone has spent their whole life feeling invisible, even a broken system can feel like the first time they're truly seen. It's tragic, and it helps explain the complicated choices Nick continues to make. If we think back to flashbacks in previous seasons, like when Nick visited the unemployment office and was initially brought on just to be a driver, it all makes sense. They offered him a purpose. And I think in this episode, the writers really wanted to hit home on the fact that Nick has basically, been brought up by Gilead in a way. And this is why he is starting to really feel the pressure and being pulled from both sides. It's only so long before somebody in that position can break, and we are starting to see Nick feel that pressure. Next, we shift over to Aunt Lydia, who shows up at Jezebel's. In typical Lydia fashion, she brings cookies for her girls. She meets with Janine, and once again, we see Lydia trying in her own misguided way to help. But Janine isn't having it. She's clear she doesn't want Lydia's help, and she doesn't need saving. When Lydia brings up the new proposal, the idea that the handmaids could work at the fertility center after they retire, Janine shuts it down immediately. She tells Lydia bluntly that nobody would agree to that this broken, trapped existence isn't some path to freedom. It's exactly where the commanders want them, on their knees, obedient and powerless. There is no way out. The conversation gets heated when Janine asks Aunt Lydia how she can be so fucking blind to the reality around them. Lydia reacts instinctively and slaps her, something she immediately apologizes for. Janine doesn't let up. She tells Aunt Lydia that if she really wants forgiveness, reuniting her with Charlotte would be the only way to even start. And she goes even further. She points out that Aunt Lydia is the reason all of this happened to her, that Lydia is the one who stole her girl away. And you can see it. You can see it breaking Aunt Lydia down. This isn't just another confrontation. This is another crack forming in Aunt Lydia's loyalty to the world she's helped build. I think they are really trying to set her up for her role in the Testaments, and I won't go too much into that because I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't read it yet. The next scene we get is Nick and June pulling up to Nick's house, only to find out that Wharton was already there waiting for Nick. Sensing something is off, Nick tells June to stay in the car, and if he doesn't come back in 5 minutes, to go find Serena's house. On the surface, it might sound strange after everything Serena's done, but it really comes down to a mix of desperation and calculation. Nick is under pressure, and with Wharton closing in and no safe place to hide June, Serena's house is probably the least risky option in that moment. And there's also the fact that, for all her hypocrisy and manipulation, Serena has never outright betrayed June in a way that would lead her to death. Well, not directly. Their twisted bond is forged through trauma and motherhood, and this gives Nick just enough reason to believe that Serena wouldn't turn June in. And honestly, Nick is barely holding it together at this point. He's running out of moves, emotionally drained, and trying to protect the one person he's always fought for. So maybe it wasn't about Serena being safe, it was more about Serena being the safer alternative. Once inside the house, Nick finds out why Wharton's there. Apparently, somebody tipped him off that Nick had been seen at Jezebel's, and it's pretty clear it was Commander Bell who sold him out. I mean, who else could it be? Wharton immediately starts grilling Nick, questioning why he was there and accusing him of being unfaithful to his daughter Rose. The conversation quickly turns tense. Nick insists he did not cheat, but it's obvious he's struggling to explain what he was doing there without revealing too much. Wharton then starts connecting the dots, or at least pretending to, pointing out all the suspicious things that have seemed to have happened around Nick. He's really applying the pressure, reminding Nick that with all of this lying, he'll end up on the wall, leaving his son without a father. Nick is constantly put in these impossible situations because of his connection to June. And here, once again, he's completely vulnerable, trapped, and desperately in need of a way out. Can he even lie at this point? I mean, Wharton is clearly seeing through it, leaving him with an impossible choice. We see June makes her way to Serena's house, catching her completely off guard. Serena's surprised, but also visibly anxious, clearly worried about being caught and questioning why June would even be there at all. June knows she can't trust Serena with the real reason she's there, so she quickly spins a lie, saying that she came to see if Nick would run away with her to Alaska, but he turned her down. So now, she's come to Serena, the only person she feels she can trust. When Serena hears this, she looks almost flattered, even a little smitten at the idea that June would say she trusts her, but we know that's not the truth. June is just telling Serena exactly what she needs to hear to bring her onto her side. And honestly, June is so good at this kind of manipulation, it's kind of scary. June apologizes for what happened on the train, and Serena acknowledges that June saved them. But then, in typical Serena fashion, she pivots to shame, calling June out for trying to get Nick to leave with her, and questioning what Luke thinks about this. She tells June that she must realize how selfish that kind of request is, turning the moment into a moral lecture. Serena seemed to manage about 2 seconds of gratitude before snapping right back into judgment mode. Classic Serena. June fires back though, pointing out that it's because of Serena, her choices, her desperation for a child, that June and Nick were ever forced together in the first place. And now they share a child. Serena, in true Serena fashion, replies with, "How could I forget? You certainly made me pay for that in prison." She even adds, "I had to pay for your little affair." My jaw dropped. Like, is she seriously trying to make June the villain here? June, holding it together, tells her they probably shouldn't be comparing suffering. And this is just another one of those moments. We got one with Moira and June, we got one with June and Lawrence, and now we're getting one with Serena and June. You can really tell the writers are trying to finally tie up some of these long-running storylines and give us some closure on the tangled, messy relationships we've been watching unfold for seasons. June changes the subject and essentially tries to end the conversation by saying she just needs a place to stay until Nick can take her back in the morning. Serena is visibly uneasy, reminding her that harboring a known fugitive like her comes with consequences. June quickly reassures her that no one knows she's there, and frankly, Serena owes it to her. Serena sets June up a room and as always, can't help but bring God into it, saying he keeps bringing them back together. And then June essentially says she wishes he wouldn't. But this is also where Serena tells June she's getting married to High Commander Wharton. Yes, Rose's father, which technically makes her Nick's future mother-in-law. June is understandably thrown, especially considering all the things Serena has said in the past about changing the system. Now it seems like she's just falling back into the same toxic cycles. Serena insists Wharton is nothing like Fred, and that they're working together to reform Gilead. She also made it a point to say that he even made her a library, or got her a library. June, ever skeptical, reminds her that Fred wasn't like Fred in the beginning either. Serena, catching the look on June's face, immediately notes her disapproval, clearly disappointed that her big announcement isn't being met with enthusiasm. Honestly, she sounds like somebody in denial, clinging to the idea that this time it'll be different. Like an abuse victim convincing themselves their next toxic relationship is somehow redemptive. June doesn't hold back though. She tells Serena she thought she wanted change, but instead she's still attaching herself to a powerful man and defending a system that's inherently oppressive. When Serena insists that New Bethlehem isn't Gilead, June shoots back with one of her best lines yet. Just because women can read here doesn't mean they're free. It's still Gilead, just a version that works better for Serena. Serena, feeling the sting, warns June that if she truly believes that, maybe she shouldn't be mouthing off to the one person protecting her. June gets the message but doesn't back down. And honestly, would it even be June if she did? The back and forth escalates as Serena throws out the classic, "change takes time," and June sarcastically thanks her for the platitude. Serena proceeds to say, "Who are you to judge?" which is peak irony coming from her. Of course, Serena can't help but circle back to June trying to break up Rose and Nick, to which June replies with the most sarcastic, "You got me." Then, things shift into a more emotional territory. Serena admits, "I know I was awful once," and June, perfectly deadpan, replies, "Once?" Serena insists she's been trying to make amends, but June won't forgive her. June then lists all the ways she has helped Serena, and still, Serena insists that June is holding on to her resentment. And then June finally says it. "I can't forgive you. You don't think I wish I could? If I could, I'd finally get rid of you." That line says so much. Not just about Serena's hold on June, but the emotional weight June still carries from everything Serena put her through. The scene closes with June basically telling Serena all she needs is a bed, nothing more. Serena doesn't argue, she just walks away, leaving things tense and unfinished. They both are still pissed, still stuck in this complicated mess with each other, and no matter how far they try to pull apart, they always end up right back in it. The next morning, Serena wakes up June with a surprise breakfast. A bit of an olive branch, maybe? It's a little strange seeing them in such a semi-normal setting, like they're just two women having a casual morning. But Serena's full of surprises, because next, she brings in Rita. The whole vibe is instantly giving me flashbacks to that one brunch scene where Serena had all the handmaids over, and it was kind of awkward and performative because she was kind of just standing there around them. That's kind of how this felt, or kind of how it seemed. We see Rita is now living in New Bethlehem and working a job Serena helped her get at a bakery. Serena starts gushing about Rita's baking and even asks if she'd consider making her wedding cake. Before Rita can respond, June jumps in and says she doesn't have to. And thankfully, Rita gently but firmly tells June that she can speak for herself. Serena plays it cool, saying she understands and that Rita can just attend as an honored guest instead. We once again see that June really needs to work on her boundaries. Noah wakes up, so Serena steps away, leaving June and Rita alone to catch up. June quickly shifts gears and tells Rita about Mayday's plan, and asks her if she wants to join in. But Rita tells her she's only here for her family. She admits that June always makes doing the brave thing seem easy, but for her, it's not that simple. June doesn't push. She tells Rita she deserves peace, and she means it. Rita's honesty gives us a real look into the perspective of someone who's not okay with Gilead, but who's just trying to survive it on her own terms. In the next to final scene, we see Lawrence playing chess with Angela, gently teaching her the game. He compares the horse to a knight, explaining how it's often underestimated. But in the hands of a skilled player, that's exactly what makes it powerful. It's clearly a metaphor for Lawrence himself quietly positioning himself in Gilead's game, underestimated by those in power, but planning to make his move. Of course, the moment is cut short when Naomi barges in, and she scolds him, saying that teaching Angela these kinds of things could reflect poorly on them. Lawrence brushes her off, telling her it won't matter. When she questions what he means, he simply says, "You'll see." It's a loaded line, hinting at his role in the Mayday plan, and his hopes of coming out on top when the dust finally settles. The episode closes with June stumbling upon what appears to be Serena's diary, or maybe a manuscript she's working on. It includes a photo of Fred, Serena, and Nicole, alongside some unsettling lines like, "I was the voice for a return to faith," and "the handmaids were a vital part." It's eerie to say the least. If this is something that Serena has been working on recently, it's a clear sign that despite all her talk of change, she is still deeply untrustworthy and wrapped up in justifying Gilead's past. June's snooping is cut short when Nick arrives. He urges her to forget about Mayday's plan and run away with him to Paris. She's clearly caught off guard, but he tells her he's already prepared everything: passports, paperwork, and a way out. Then, in a flood of emotion, he tells her he loves her, and they kiss passionately. He pleads with her, "Your mom can bring Holly. We can be a family." June pushes back, saying she can't leave everyone behind. But Nick insists, "Yes, you can. You're it. It's always been you." As a longtime fan of Nick and June, those words hit hard. They've been a long time coming. For a brief moment, it feels like an escape, and a real future might actually be possible for them. And it seems like June is going to say yes. But before we can get a clear answer from June, there's a knock at the door, and it's Wharton. Serena, realizing who's at the door, urges Nick and June to get into the closet, clearly stunned to find him there since he was supposed to be in DC. Thinking fast, she tries to get Wharton to take a walk with her and Noah, so Nick and June can slip away. But before they leave, Wharton starts talking, right in front of the closet. And that's when the truth drops like a brick. Wharton casually reveals that thanks to some newly uncovered intel, he was able to shut down Jezebel's and stop what he describes as a resistance-led massacre. Inside the closet, June's face shifts. You can see the gears turning. This is why Nick suddenly was ready to run off to Paris with her. And then comes the gut punch. Wharton confirms what June was already assuming. It was Nick who told him the whole plan. He gave him everything. You can feel the betrayal radiating off June, even from behind the door. They were just there, so close to freedom, intimacy, hope, and now it's all shattered. Nick stands beside her, silent, as the weight of what he's just done sinks in. Not only this, but where will the Jezebels go? Where will Janine go? What's going to happen to them? The final image of the episode shows June in front of the door, but Nick is no longer by her side. He's faded into the background, into shadow. It's quietly devastating, a visual metaphor that speaks volumes. Is this the end of their story? Has Nick crossed the line that he can't come back from? Or is there still something left to salvage? The whole scene even feels a bit like a confessional in a church. Two people hidden away in a small sacred space. One holding a secret, the other learning a truth that changes everything. Except instead of absolution, what June gets is heartbreak. And what Nick offers isn't penance, it's betrayal. This episode honestly messed me up more than any of the other episodes we've gotten this season so far. We've seen June deal with a lot of betrayal over the years, but she's also made her own heartbreaking choices. Let's not forget when she gave up the handmaids the moment she saw Hannah. She's not perfect, and neither is Nick. So hopefully she'll understand that he did what he had to do, and maybe even eventually she'll be able to forgive him. But the truth is, Nick had no choice. In Gilead, especially in the moment he had with Wharton, it was truth or the wall. And what good would he be to June if he were dead? But that moment in the closet, the look on her face when she realizes what he's done, absolutely soul-crushing. They had just been dreaming of Paris, talking about running away and being a family, and then bam, the floor just drops out from under them. And now they're supposed to, ride to the border together? And that's just going to be the most awkward, gut-wrenching car ride of all time. I have no idea what this means for them moving forward. Can she forgive him? Can she trust him again? I mean, I hope so. I'm a big Nick and June fan. I know Nick is not perfect, and he also helped create Gilead, or was a part of, making it happen. But I just think him and June are a lot more connected and have a stronger bond in a way, and maybe relate a little better to each other than Luke and June at this point. And so I'm going with that. Now let's get into some real-world parallels. Recently, a new executive order was signed requiring truck drivers to prove they are proficient in English. A move that on the surface seems like it's about safety. But when you peel back the layers, it feels more like a litmus test for belonging. It's not just about language, it's about who gets to participate in the economy, who's considered American enough, and who gets pushed to the margins. In Gilead, we see the same gatekeeping, but cloaked in religion and ideology. Only certain people are deemed worthy of rights, jobs, even freedom. Everyone else is either invisible or disposable. Language becomes a weapon, a barrier, a sorting tool. Just like in Gilead, where certain women lose their names and voices, today we're seeing how something as basic as speech can be politicized. It's not about proficiency, it's about power. Now let's talk about censorship. Not just the obvious kind, but the version that wears a suit and smiles behind a podium. Recently, Amazon was rumored to be working on a feature that would provide some transparency, basically pulling back the curtain on the trade policy and the tariffs. But before that idea could go anywhere, the White House publicly slammed the concept, calling it hostile and political. Then Trump personally called Jeff Bezos, and not long after, Amazon didn't deny it, but basically said they were only planning to use it on one of their stores. In an interview I saw, Trump praised Bezos for doing the right thing. Now what does that sound like? In Gilead, censorship isn't always about burning books. Sometimes it's just about making sure the right people say the right things, and punishing anyone who steps out of line. Here, instead of silencing a person, it's pressure on a private company to shut down transparency. The message is clear. If you challenge the narrative, you'll be put in your place. And this is where capitalism comes in. In Gilead, power is traded like currency. Your worth depends on your role in the system. And in our world, information is capital. Corporations are expected to play along with political agendas, even when it means keeping consumers in the dark. That's censorship wrapped in a dollar sign. Whether it's Gilead or the real world, we see how the truth can be quietly controlled, covered up, watered down, or twisted, until we barely notice it's gone. Our last parallel for this episode actually came up today. This May Day, protests popped up across the U.S. Protesters across the country were calling attention to how this administration and the billionaire class it's aligned with are consolidating control in dangerous ways. Musk is now running DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and under that name, federal agencies are being dismantled. Immigrants are being fast-tracked for deportation, and public systems are quietly shifting into private hands. It's eerily similar to what we see in Gilead. In The Handmaid's Tale, power is centralized and society is restructured to benefit a few at the top. And it's always done under the guise of safety, order, or progress. What's happening now isn't fiction. It's a modern version of that same formula. Dress it up as efficiency or patriotism, but at the end of the day, it's still control. What stood out the most during these protests wasn't just the size of the crowds, it was the clarity of the message. People are scared, frustrated, and refusing to stay quiet while democracy is slowly chipped away. If Gilead taught us anything, it's that silence makes space for oppression to grow, and these protests are people trying to speak up before it's too late. So that brings us to an end on this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so come chat with me on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. Thanks for hanging out with me for this breakdown. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave a rating. It really helps more people find the podcast. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay sharp, and as always, blessed be the fight.